Continuing the countdown, this is number 12 in the countdown of my top 50 games in my collection. This is Seven Wonders. This is a card drafting game. It is the card drafting game to have. When I say card drafting, I know I talked about this in other videos, but probably not to this extent. So you will be dealt a hand of cards, and you will select one, and then you will pass the remaining cards to a player to your right or left, depending on which round it is. And through those cards, you are going to be building a civilization. At the end of the game, whoever has the best civilization, most victory points, will be the winner. There are a lot of different type of cards. There are, in the first stage, there's a lot of resource type cards. So you will build a glassworks factory, and that gives you access to glass. Or an ore, you find an ore vein, and that would give you extra ore. Or you may build an east trading post, which lets you trade with a player to your east or to your right, and you can normally you can purchase items from their resource pile for 2 gold, but with this it lets you buy it for 1. Then there are build the blue cards, the buildings that you can build that just give you straight victory points, like a pawn shop, a theater, the baths. You can also build military, like a guard tower gives you 1 military. At the end of a round, I shouldn't say round, I should say an age. There are 3 ages in the Seven Wonders game. At the end of the age, you compare with your neighbors. If you have more military, you'll get a victory point, and they'll get a -1. At the end of the second age, you'll get 3 victory points. If you have a higher military, they'll get -1. And at the end of the third age, it's 5 victory points and -1 if you lose. And you compare each round. So as you're drafting cards, you're going to want to look and see what your neighbors are doing militarily. You can also, there are also science cards, and you get bonus for going down the science. You get victory points for going down the science path, and the more sciences you have, the better they interact, the more victory points you'll get. So I've seen people win by just taking the science route. Likewise, I've seen people win going pure military. So that's the first stage. Is pretty much some basic science, some military, some resources. You can also build your wonder, and instead of playing the card face up, you can play it face down, so long as you have the resources, and build your wonder. And there, you can do this at any point. You can do it all in the first age, you can do it all in the third age, or along the way. And you will get certain benefits depending on the civilization you've chosen for what the wonder will give you. And there's too much to go into because of the I think there's 6 different civilizations in the starting game. Giza, Olympia, Rhodes, Babylon. Where the seven wonders were. Alexandria, the 7 in the starter box. There are 3 major expansions for this that add quite a bit to it. Plays 3 to 7 players, best with 5 to 7. All 7's good. 10 and up can probably handle it. It's relatively quick, takes about 30 minutes. The second age, you're passing the opposite way. I think the first round is clockwise, second round is counterclockwise, third round is clockwise. So you're passing to a different neighbor. There's a lot more military, a lot more of the yellow cards that help benefit off of what your neighbors are doing, trade cards essentially. A lot more science, less of the resources, but the ones you do get are double for the most part. And then finally you get to the third age, and then there's some really good things. And then there's guilds, which are the purple cards that give you even more bonuses for what your neighbors have, if you can manage to afford it. There are also, if you don't have the resources to build something, some of the buildings you built before will unlock the card, so you can build it without needing um, the prerequisite. Like in the third age, you can build a university, which would cost 2 lumber, 1 parchment, and 1 glass, unless you had a library. Then you could build it for free. Say, I already built the library, I'm going to build the university. And that's a science card. So, yep, it's relatively quick, very, say, not too thinky, but strategic. It is strategic, and you got to think a little bit ahead, and sometimes you're halfway through and everybody's taking, you're planning for a science build, and then the person across the table is taking all the science cards, as they're doing the same thing, so you may have to swap it up as the game progresses. And then at the end you score the points. They give you a handy little scorecard sheet that you fill out as you go, and you get money for gold victory points for money at the end of the game, which is unusual in a lot of these games. So you could take a just go for money route. Yeah, and that's 7 Wonders, my number 12 in my countdown. Stay tuned for number 11 for the kids.